Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
And we're back. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Nick Robin, and we have a great show in store for you today. I just got back to the beach and felt like I was hanging out with the cast from Jersey Shore. Went over to my buddy Sam's house, and I show up, we head to the beach with our other friend Audrey, and we come back, and there's just these four big, meaty-ass dudes, look like they don't do any leg day, just sitting on the porch. And, like, hey, they're all super nice, like, whatever, but, like, literally thought I was hanging out with, like, Pauly D and The Situation from Jersey Shore, as I mentioned. They were from Florida, and it feels like people have finally gotten smart enough to, people on the East Coast have become aware of how great San Diego on the West Coast is, and they've started to migrate west. So, yeah, I felt like I was on a bad episode of, like, Jersey Shore and hanging out with these guys. Really felt like I was in college again. I was just like, guys, it's not cool acting like you're still in college. We're on the beach with them. They're playing beer die on the beach. And a lifeguard comes by and asks them what they're drinking in the cups. And, of course, they lie and say water. But, yeah, just not a cool look at 24, 25 years old. But yeah, I mean, just not my kind of scene. So we kind of dipped out, me and Audrey and Sam, and kind of realized, not really our scene. So, I just thought I'd start with that, a little small talk, another beautiful day in San Diego. And today we have a special show. We'll be discussing Vince Carter's retirement and how he will be remembered, ongoing issues with Orlando 2020, and Kevin Love's and my own personal battle with mental health. And as always, stick around for the end of the show for Nick's picks. Today, I will be breaking down best U.S. cities nightlife. So, and on that note of Nick's picks, I've decided to go away from the old format of doing the top 10, and instead we're going to do the top 5 with 2 honorable mentions. I just think it becomes a little tedious doing a top 10, and I feel like I just find myself dragging on and trying to come up with material to talk about all 10 options for that topic. So I just thought this might make it a little more clean, a little bit more engaging than me just going down the list of 10 different options. So yeah, I think that you'll enjoy this a lot more. So again, stick around to the end of the show for Nick's picks, best U.S. cities nightlife. And so on Thursday, we found out that Vince Carter, after 22 seasons in the NBA, has retired. Has finally officially retired. Unfortunately, not under the circumstances that he might have wanted. Because as we all know, in March, the season was shut down due to COVID, and with the new Orlando situation happening at the end of July, the NBA only selected 22 teams, with the Hawks having the 4th worst record in the NBA. They were not invited to the big dance in Orlando, so that ends Vince Carter's career prematurely. I mean, the guy's been in the league for 22 years, only player in NBA history to appear in a game in 4 different decades. So let's take a look at the legacy that he's leaving behind. And when I think of Vince Carter, 3 things come to mind. Greatest dunker of all time, longevity, and unfortunately unfulfilled potential. So the guy was an 8-time All-Star, 1999 Rookie of the Year. He's 19th all-time in scoring, but only has a career scoring average of 16.7 points per game. So he might be 19th all-time, but that's due to the fact that he's played in the league for 22 years, which, let me see, I mean, that might be the most seasons ever logged by a player. Going quickly, just going to do a little search here. So, yeah, looking at the list here of most seasons ever played, that is number 1 all time. So congrats to Vince Carter, the unofficial Iron Man in the NBA. No one has ever played 22 years in the NBA. So very impressive there. Robert Parrish played 21, along with Kevin Willis, Kevin Garnett, and Dirk Nowitzki. And then next, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Kobe Bryant each played 20, along with, that's it. So he's in a class all by himself, the only player to play in 4 different decades. Of course, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and luckily 2020, which for most has not been a great year. So congrats to Vince Carter on the retirement. He deserves it. I mean, the fact that he's still playing professional basketball at 43 years old is remarkable. So let's go into the career. So Vinsanity, he garners that nickname in the 90s, early 2000s due to his unbelievable leaping ability. In 2000, he has one of the greatest slam dunk performances of all time at Oracle Arena. I was only 7 at the time, so I don't remember it that vividly, but I've gone on, seen the highlights, and it is ridiculous. The air time, the creativity in air, and some dunks that we just had never seen before. And he'll also be remembered for the greatest dunk in a game ever over the 7-foot Frederick Weiss in the Olympics in 2000. So to YouTube, look it up. Dunks over a 7-foot guy in a game. Unbelievable. Moving forward, I want to compare Vince Carter with his early 90s, 2000s teammate Tracy McGrady. So they were on the same team. They're actually cousins, for those of you that don't know. They actually didn't find that out until they were drafted both by the Toronto Raptors. Tracy McGrady in 1997, and then Vince Carter the next year in 1998 out of UNC. And I kind of wanted to just do a comparison here to see who do we take. So in terms of peak performance, Carter had a somewhat longer peak going from 2000 to 2009, averaging 23.9 points a game, 5.4 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1.3 steals, about 0.7 block a game, which is amazing for someone who's 6'5" and a guard, 44.6% from the field, 37.8% from 3. So honestly, a very underappreciated 3-point sniper, 80% from the line. Then we have Tracy McGrady, whose peak lasted from 2001 to 2008. He averaged 26.3 a game, 6.4 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.8 blocks a game, 43.6 from the field, 34% from three-pointer, 75.3 from free throw line. So very similar. McGrady has an advantage over Carter in every single counting statistic, while Vince has better percentages from the field, the three-point line, and the free throw line. So let's look kind of now at the playoff comparison. Vince Carter made only one Eastern Conference Final appearance against the Celtics in 2009, 2010, when he was no longer the best player on the team with Orlando. And then he lost the 2001 East Semis, Game 7, to the Sixers, who went on with AI to the finals that year. And then, surprisingly, and this I think this is a big McGrady, I wouldn't call it a fun fact because it's not fun being eliminated from the first round of the playoffs. Every year in your career, never making it out of the second round, he lost 3 first-round Game 7s. So very little luck for McGrady in the playoffs. I'd say both of those are washes at this point. Then we look more now at the player comparison. Carter coming into the league was compared to Michael Jordan, that he was the next heir to the throne. Did not live up to that hype. I think it was more due to his extraordinary leaping ability that he got the comparison to Air Jordan. But of course did not have, and not many people do have, the same equal work ethic as Michael Jordan. And then with McGrady, in the mid-2000s, there was a legitimate argument between who was better, McGrady or Kobe. So, I mean, my final verdict here on whose career do you take? McGrady might have had the better peak. Carter, I think overall would just be the better overall teammate, was willing to adapt his game when he lost some of his athleticism and was able to stay in the league for 22 years. So I think I'm going to have to take Carter over his longevity and just the dunking legacy that he leaves behind. Because I think Kobe was asked several years ago who he would take in a dunk contest between himself, Michael Jordan, Julius Erving, and Carter. And he chose Carter over Air Jordan, Dr. J, who is one of the early pioneers of the dunk contest, and even Kobe himself. And Kobe, was a great dunker in his own right, winning the dunk contest in 97. So that says a lot for Kobe to choose Vince Carter over himself. So I think that really speaks volumes when a player of that magnitude thinks that highly of you. So finishing it off, how will he be remembered? / where do we rank Vince Carter all time? So when I think of Vince Carter, I do think of the amazing leaping ability, the 2000 dunk contest, the dunk over Frederick Weiss. But then I look at lost opportunities, lack of playoff success, and I believe unfulfilled potential. So we have the one Eastern Conference appearance, as I mentioned earlier, to the Celtics, and just the fact that he was supposed to be better than what he gave us. I think once he went to the Nets, it slowly trickled down in terms of his contributions and his ability, and I think by the time he was 31, 32, he was on the downside of his career where let's compare this now. So for Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, neither of them have a finals appearance. Amongst both of them, they only have one Eastern Conference finals appearance. We have LeBron over here making the finals every damn year, and we give him so much grief for not winning it all. And yes, it's because we say if you want to be Jordan, you have to win the big games. But in comparison to guys like McGrady and Vince Carter, who are surefire Hall of Famers, he crushes them in terms of playoff success. McGrady never even made it out of the first round, and the guy made the Hall of Fame. So it just shows us that it's not easy. It's not easy making it to the finals. It's not easy playing 20-plus games a year, the playoffs, year after year after year. And the most games Vince Carter ever played in the playoffs was 14. So that just says a lot right there. They don't have the same track record as other all-time greats. And so, yeah, in May, ESPN went out on a ranking. They ranked the top 74 players of all time to represent the 74 years of the NBA. And on May 11th, they released their first-round list, and Carter was ranked 55th all-time between Pierce at 54 and Ray Allen at 56. I have to put him a little bit lower, in terms of lower as in the higher digits. I'd have to put him in a tier. Let's start there. When you look at the Hall of Fame, not all Hall of Famers are created equal. There's many different tiers. So when it comes to the NBA, I look at it like this. There's tiers 1 through 5. Tier 1 being your pantheon of NBA superstars, your Michael Jordans, your Kobe Bryants, your Shaqs, your Wilts, your Russells. And then your tier 2 is right outside of that. Your Karl Malones, John Stocktons, Steph Curry in that 15 to 30 range. And then you have your tier 3, which is guys like Reggie Miller, Paul Pierce, I would say, Ray Allen. And then I'd say Carter is in between that tier 3 and tier 4. The guy was great in the regular season. He has some amazing moments in All-Star games. He won a gold in the 2000 Olympics. But in terms of the playoff success, it's very lacking. So I'm going to have to put him in that 60 to 70 range. Because, yes, in his prime, Vince Carter was a guy that we thought could win a championship when he was at the peak of his powers in those early 2000s when he was still with the Raptors in those first couple years with the Nets. But, I guess he didn't have the greatest teams in the world, but at the same time, I think when people think you're one of the top 10 players in the league, you have to be able to perform. And so, ending it there, I rank Vince Carter in between 60 and 70 all time. A guy who had amazing leaping ability, able to jump out of the gym. Only 2 times. This, I think, speaks volumes of how you might construe how good a player really is. In his entire career, in 22 years, Vince Carter only made the All-NBA team twice. In 99-2000, he made the 3rd team. The next year, 2001, he made the 2nd team. So only 1 year in his career was he voted as a top 10 player in the NBA. And this was also during a down period in the NBA when the Lakers were winning in a diluted league, championship after championship after championship. And the fact that he could only boast to say that he was the top 10 player in the league 1 time in his entire career, that he was only considered in the top 10, is, I think, really shows you that he might have been, I think, a little bit overrated, in my opinion. But, hey, he had a heck of a career, 22 years in the NBA. You have to tip your cap to that. He was able to adapt and change his from a superstar to a solid bench player to a motivational coach, player coach to young, promising players in John Collins and Trae Young in Atlanta this past season. So you have to give him credit for being able to adapt and not like other players like Melo took so long to finally take into that bench role. And Vince Carter was more than happy to move along and just do something different, whatever it took to help the team. So I commend him on that. But I'd say in terms of how others remember him, I'd say he was slightly overrated. But nonetheless, we're not here to completely shit on Vince Carter's career and what it could have been and what it was. But I'm here to celebrate 22 years of NBA excellence and how great of an ambassador he was to the game of basketball and to future players. And if you haven't watched the Vince Carter documentary created by LeBron James's media company Spring Hill Entertainment, it's on Netflix. I highly recommend. It just shows a lot. It shows it's more not just, it is about a lot about Vince Carter. It's basically about Vince Carter, but it also shows the impact he had on popularizing the game of basketball in the city of Toronto. So highly recommend. Go watch it. And moving on to the next segment, after this commercial break, I will be discussing the ongoing issues with Orlando 2020. So stay tuned for that after this brief break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So we just finished up discussing the retirement of Vince Carter, his legacy in the league. We did a little Tracy McGrady versus Vince Carter comparison and who I would take. And we finally talked about how he'll be remembered in his all-time player ranking. So moving forward, Orlando 2020 is almost upon us. Players are to report by July 1st, but there seems to be some issues with the dramatic COVID spikes in the state of Florida. So this past Wednesday and Thursday, June 24th and 25th, they had consecutive days of 5,000 plus new cases. And then yesterday, on Friday, June 26th, they encountered 8,942 cases reported. So things are not going well in Florida. Not sure how much you paid attention, but they never went on a true lockdown. They kept things open, and they're finally paying the consequences. Since the start of June, cases have doubled from 56,000 to above 114,000. So more than doubled. They've set daily records on 7 of the past 13 days. And it looks like there's a little drama in politics there, of course, with Governor Ron DeSantis is being accused by Rebecca Jones. She said she was wrongfully fired by the state of Florida. She's in charge of the state's official COVID-19 database, and that she was fired in May for refusing to manipulate its figures, claiming on social media to have evidence that employees at Florida's Department of Health have been instructed to change the numbers and begin slowly deleting deaths and cases so it looks like Florida's improving in the lead up to 4th of July weekend. Now that's some pretty fucked up shit there. Some underground, sleazy political bullshit to make it seem like they're having some sort of change in a positive direction going on in Florida when, I mean, who's going to believe that when the country hasn't shut down? How are they going to show a decrease in COVID cases when they haven't done any precautions to prevent the spread? Again, just so you know, this was reported by The Guardian, and it just sickens me how, of course, Governor Ron DeSantis has denied these allegations, calling it embarrassing. But usually when you do something wrong, typically you did it. More than likely, I know in our judicial system, you're innocent until proven guilty. But if someone's willing to call you out on something like this and has been fired, I don't think, more than likely they're not making shit up. So we'll see how this plays out moving forward. But it's not even just the state of Florida. There's been 16 NBA players have tested positive out of 302 players tested. That alone is kind of a scary number. And superstar alert, Nikola Jokic has tested positive for COVID. So there's that. Doesn't look like things are going in a positive direction. And then on top of that, we've already had several players opt out of Florida: Avery Bradley, Davis Bertans, Trevor Ariza, DeMarcus Cousins, Willie Cauley-Stein. So what's going to happen? I don't really know. The commissioner says that we need to move forward regardless of what's going on in the world and that we will figure things out as we move forward. But is it really fair to ask the players to isolate themselves from their family and loved ones? And then these tests that are being taken, they're not even 100% accurate. People can go under the radar. People can go under the radar and be asymptomatic, and so they can be walking around carrying this disease, infecting people without us knowing. And imagine the drama that happened back in March when Rudy Gobert tested positive and the entire stadium was in complete and utter fear. Like there was not to use, sorry for the crazy analogy, but there was a bomb in the arena. So it's like one player tested positive and the whole arena freaked out. They didn't know what to do. And I just can't wait. Once we get to Orlando and games start happening, imagine what it's going to be like if right before a game, like we saw in March with Rudy Gobert, if a player tests positive. Everyone's going to start freaking out, running around like their heads were chopped off, a chicken with their head cut off. And I just don't know how long this can last for. I just don't see this as a viable plan moving forward. That the fact that they're going to be able to stay isolated, the players are not going to go out, they're going to stay in their hotel rooms. The human being was not meant to stand still and not have any human interaction. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamics of players coming in and out of the hotels over the next couple of weeks. Is it really fair? Is it fair to ask these players? They are being paid millions and millions of dollars to be away from their family and their loved ones just to finish a basketball season. And with everything going on, as I mentioned earlier, with the state of Florida, it just looks very unlikely that Orlando doesn't seem like it's the best destination anymore to host this. I think it might have been better to go someplace like Vegas or maybe somewhere in California that has San Francisco. To be honest, San Francisco has done an amazing job of minimizing COVID and the deaths. I think they've only had 47 total deaths from COVID in a city that is everyone's living on top of each other. Is a little under 1 million, and the fact that they've only had 47 deaths in what is probably one of the only real cities as in like you can walk out of your house and walk from place to place, where in LA everything's so spread out, and LA has almost overtaken New York as the most COVID infested city in America. So I mean, I think it's time. And I know it's a little tough now to do it, and the same facilities aren't present in San Francisco that are present in Orlando with Walt Disney World, but I think it's time to maybe start looking for a new destination. Somewhere similar to Las Vegas. The whole city's been shut down for a while, so I think that might be a safer location than Florida, which is one of the most, I mean, let's call it what it is. Arizona, Texas, and Florida, super conservative states, were very limited, or did little to prevent the spread of COVID, and now they're paying for it now. Arizona looks like they might go on a lockdown. Texas has seen spikes in cases, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, almost 20,000 new cases of COVID in 3 days. That's absurd. There's 114,000 total, and we've seen 20,000 in the last 3 days alone. That's not a good sign. But moving along, stay tuned for a special segment on Kevin Love and my own personal battle with mental health after this commercial break. As always, thanks for tuning in, and stay put for the continuation of the GSMC Basketball Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back. So we just discussed that shit show going on in Orlando with the increase in the drastic spike in COVID cases, along with, is it really fair to ask NBA players to spend so much time away from their families just to play a game of basketball? And my opinion that we should move forward in terms of a new location away from Orlando, someplace maybe like Vegas or someplace in California that has seen dramatic dips in cases, but really doesn't look like any place in the country is a good spot right now. And moving on to a very personal topic for me, and something that I feel like needs to be spoken about more, especially in this society of masculinity and looking weak or looking like just a loser, or looking like being a bitch, or looking like a bitch, I would say, for pardon my language here. But mental health, I think, is something that a lot of people in society don't take seriously. They think it's a sign of weakness, and I want to start by congratulating Kevin Love, who this past Sunday was awarded the Arthur Ashe Award for his efforts to promote mental health. And let's start on how this kind of began. And really it started with Demar Derozan in February 2018. Tweeted out, "This depression gets the best of me." And he himself is not, I would say, someone who wanted to be a advocate for mental health. He's kind of more of a shy demeanor and personality. And really, you got to tip your hat to someone like Demar who was able to come out and speak, because I think when you play in the NBA, a lot of these guys are super macho and they come from different backgrounds and they just don't like anything. And whenever a male talks about his emotions, it's shown as perceived as a sign of weakness, when I think it takes a lot of courage and strength to be able to talk about topics such as mental health. And I think there's negative stigmas and just inaccurate information out there about mental health and how it affects people. But I want to start here with Demar Derozan. Demar Derozan, again, as I mentioned, February 2018, tweets out about his depression, his mental health. There's an article a couple days later, but it doesn't really gain traction until Kevin Love comes into the picture, and he writes an essay, a beautiful essay on the Players Tribune website titled "Everybody is Going Through Something." As someone like myself who has dealt with mental health issues, I could really relate to this. So going back, in November 2017, Kevin Love, in the middle of an NBA game, stops, he's a little lethargic after a couple plays, and at one point he can't breathe, and he doesn't know what's going on. He's never experienced anything like this. He has to walk back into the clubhouse trying to take a breath, but is unable to breathe, and it's literally one of the scariest experiences that anyone can go through. So he writes this amazing essay, and I think really the theme of it is that, like, and to be honest, you should just be nice to everyone and treat everyone with respect, and that's the same thing Demar Derozan spoke about in his article, that, you got to treat everyone with respect and just be nice to everyone, because at the end of the day, you don't know what's going on in their life. And I think a lot of the times we get caught up in what's going on in our own lives, and we don't really take a moment to step back and maybe think about what someone else is going through. So November 2017, Kevin Love has a panic attack. March 6, 2018, he releases the essay about mental health, about his struggles, about how he didn't perceive this as something that he should be dealing with, that it's looked upon as kind of being a bitch, for lack of a better word, that you're talking about something that really isn't physical. Again, it's mental. It's mental health. It's not something that you can really quantify or define. And again, my own experience with mental health, when in May of 2017, I was working for the LA Clippers in an entry-level sales role. I was making very, very little money, because that's what they do. They stick you in a room with 10 to 12 others, make 80 to 100 calls a day. It's very stressful, and I went home for the weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and I'll be honest, I maybe had a little too much fun, drank a little too much. My endorphins were very low, and that Tuesday morning, I woke up and got in my car and started driving from San Diego all the way to LA, and I'm driving past Camp Pendleton, the Army base in between San Clemente and San Diego, and as I drive, my whole body seems to just shut down, and I go numb entirely, and I can't breathe, and I'm just like chilling on the freeway, going 70 miles per hour, having a full blown on panic attack right there, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do, and I've never experienced anything like this, and it's to be able to relate to someone like Kevin Love, like Demar Derozan, to know that they're professional athletes, they're making millions of dollars, they're playing on the highest level, and they still deal with the same problems that I deal with, and to be able to relate to them, that speaks volumes and goes it gives me clarity that I'm not the only one going through something. And that's kind of the whole point of Kevin Love's essay, is that, again, we don't know what else somebody else is going through, but everybody is going through something, whether it's they can't pay their mortgage, they've had a death in the family, they get anxious going in big crowds, which is something that I think I dealt with as well in college. I had, during my sophomore year, before going out to parties, I got really nervous and I would sometimes throw up due to my nerves. And that's another sign of maybe my mental health wasn't in the best place that it could have been. And just a couple ways that I think they're very simple, and you can Google these as well, is there's a couple ways to help your mental health. Cut down on, or to not just mental health, but I would say your anxiety. And those include cutting down on alcohol, cutting down on caffeine, meditating for at least 5 to 10 minutes a day, not falling asleep with the TV on, cutting out expensive purchases of things that you can't afford that are just going to cause you anxiety later on when you're looking at your bills. Because I think a lot of our mental health comes from things such as the problems in our life, such as unemployment, maybe overspending when you really don't have the money to spend. And just a couple of the things, meditating, I'd say, is a huge one. Practice breathing, doing all things in your power to eliminate anxiety from your life is a step in the right direction. So moving past all this, Kevin Love has donated $500,000 to UCLA for mental health work. And it's great to see someone like Kevin Love speak out on this. And you have to tip your cap, though, to Demar Derozan, who could have led this movement himself, but it's not really in his demeanor or personality to be an outspoken advocate. But thank you to Kevin Love that he was able to take the reins from Demar Derozan and bring this issue to the forefront of the NBA. Because in a league like the NBA, a lot of these players are sheltered. They come from various backgrounds, and they're just people, and not even just the NBA, the whole sports landscape, and honestly, men in general. And not saying women are comfortable with speaking about it either, but just the whole macho guy, like growing up, all men are told to hide their emotions, not let people know when they're upset, but like really what good does that do? It just keeps things bottled up, and there's no long-term benefits from keeping things bottled up and not speaking out about what's going on in your life and what you can do to make things better moving forward. And going a little bit emotional here, it's just like some days you walk out of your house, and I don't know if you can relate to this, some days you just walk out of your house and you feel like the whole world hates you. It's a dark thing to say, but some days you just feel like you just need to be told that you're loved, you're cared about, and it's something as simple as that. So I want to just let you know to tell your loved ones that you love them, that you care about them, that you're there for them if they need to talk. And because it's not easy to come out and just say how you're feeling. So I think if a friend or a loved one's in trouble, I think it's best to just tell them that you can always be there to listen, used as a security blanket or a shoulder to cry on, for lack of a better term. But let's try and do a better job at promoting mental health. So instead of being the problem, let's try and alleviate the issues going on in the world, especially right now with COVID. It is such a tough time for people to stay positive, and a lot of feelings and thoughts of doubt creep into our minds, especially for those unemployed right now. I'm with you guys. There's 40 million of us. We're not the only ones going through this pandemic. We're all in it together. Things are going to shape up eventually. Things will go back to normal, and jobs will come back that are currently out. And for all my people that I've worked with in sports, it's a tough time right now, but things are going to get better moving forward. Eventually, we will be back in the stands. We'll be able to watch players like Demar Derozan, like Kevin Love, deal with their mental health and still go out there and perform on a day-to-day basis. And it's admirable to see. So thank you, Kevin Love. Thank you, Demar Derozan, for bringing this to the forefront and being able to speak on a topic that for so long has had just this negative stigma that it just isn't okay to talk about what's going on in our day-to-day lives. So thank you. We commend you, and I look forward. I'm a huge Kevin Love fan ever since UCLA. My sister herself went to UCLA. She's a psychologist, so she deals with people like Kevin that have had problems in their day-to-day life, and it's just so great to see them come out and speak out on this and be a role model to so many young kids out there, and even myself who's dealt with these issues. So I'm going to stop at the sappiness here. We're going to end it off with Nick's picks of best U.S. nightlife. So stay tuned, and I'll be back in just a moment after this commercial break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Back to you now here on the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented as always by the GSMC Podcast Network. Nick Robin here, and we're at my favorite segment of the show, Nick's Picks. We just talked about Kevin Love, Demar Derozan, and the mental health awareness that has been brought to the forefront of the NBA scene over the last several years. Congratulations again to Kevin Love for winning the Arthur Ashe Award for his involvement in bringing awareness to mental health. So here we are, Nick's Picks, and over the last couple of weeks, we've changed things up, and in order to make this show a little bit more edgy and fun and not just about basketball, Nick's Picks involves topics about anything from sports to movies to television to music to pop culture to lifestyle, and today we are doing lifestyle. Best U.S. cities nightlife. So let's do the ranking. Let's look at the ranking criteria that I use to form my top 5 best cities for U.S. nightlife. And yeah, let me mention that again. So we have been doing top 10s, but I thought that was just a little too monotonous and tedious going through the top 10 instead of just a top 5. So it allows me more time to speak on just 5 things rather than 10 things and kind of run out and kind of be a little repetitive, repeating the same things over and over and over again. So it's no longer a top 10, it's a top 5. We will have a couple honorable mentions as well. So back to the ranking criteria for best U.S. city nightlife. And I'd say it's bar plus club scene, the demographics, and by that I mean AKA attractive people, men and women, and then the weather, and then I guess affordability would be another factor involved. But to be honest, if you're going out and you're trying to have a good time, it's never going to be cheap. Unless we all know that in Vegas, if you're a female and you're with no men, the whole weekend's free. Must be nice because, hey, whenever I go to Vegas, I'm a G or even 2 in the hole by the time I get back. And Sundays are filled with lots of regret and anxiety, like any good weekend, actually. So, funny because we just spoke about mental health. So, let's continue here. In my honorable mentions, I'm going to begin with a city that I just moved back from, San Francisco, California. So, it has a lot of great options. I'd say it's more of a bar town than a club city. They do have a couple of clubs, one of them being Love and Propaganda, which I personally found very fun. And then you also have your really trippy late night club like audio that goes till 6 a.m. in the morning if you're looking more for that bump, 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 no lyric kind of music, which some people seem to love. I don't know why, but whenever I hear music like that, I feel like I'm strung out. I feel like, yeah, you're just super strung out in like a dark basement and really just not my scene. But San Francisco has a great bar scene in the Marina, North Beach, the Mission. Hey, if you go out there though, remember cash only. I made that mistake a couple times. And then, hey, if you're looking to swing the other way, we do have the Castro as well, one of the best gay parts of America to go out in. So there's a lot to offer. The vibe there is very laid back. The people aren't as pretentious as you might find in Southern California or in New York. People are super friendly. In terms of the hookup scene, I'd say it's not a big hookup city in comparison to places like LA, New York, Miami. So that's one thing to remember. But I would like to point out in terms of weather, it does get cloudy a lot, and that's what it's known for. But when it's a sunny day in San Francisco, and I've lived in San Diego, I've lived in LA, there's no more beautiful city in California than San Francisco on a sunny day. You have the bay right there on the water. You can see Alcatraz. You have the Golden Gate Bridge. It's just beautiful. There's parks there that people flock to. And the funny thing about the parks there is that there's no rules. Like, you can have open containers, and you got your two parks. When we're talking about San Francisco, you got your trippy park, which is Mission Dolores Park. You see people smoking joints, taking mushrooms. There's a guy known as the Trouble Man that walks around just giving out little chocolates to people. And then you got your fratty park, or your douchey park, which is Fort Mason, also known as Frat Mason. People out there, they got their shirts on, shirts off. They have playing beer die in the middle, in broad daylight. It's amazing. And then moving on, next honorable mention, and here I guess it's a little biased because I was born and raised here, 24 years, San Diego, California. It's called America's finest city for a reason. The weather is perfect year-round, 70 to 75, sunny, sometimes has a little bit of clouds. But in terms of the going out scene, you have Pacific Beach, which in my opinion might be one of the best places to go out to in the country. How many places are there where there's bar on bar on bar, 20-plus bars right next to the ocean? Go from one to another, bounce around. Sometimes lines can be a little long, but it's more affordable, I'd say, than places like LA and Miami. That might be a little bit pricier. If you want to go clubbing, there's a great scene down in downtown in the Gaslamp area. Gaslamp has great bars, but then again, there's Omnia, there's Bang Bang, a lot of great clubs, great music scene, and the people it's Southern California. Everyone's tan, everyone's somewhat attractive. Great place to go out. So now, honorable mention, San Francisco, San Diego. Moving on to Nick's Picks, U.S. City Nightlife. And number 5, and a place I've been to once, was not able to go out, but I've heard good things, so I can't speak too much on it. But it's a major U.S. city, and they got Wrigleyville, and I'm talking about Chicago, Illinois. So Chicago, Illinois, 5th on my list. They have the whole Wrigleyville with all the bars lined up. Great time to go out. The club scene, I heard, is pretty great as well. And the Midwestern girls, not only are they, and Midwestern guys too, not only do they have not only are they attractive, but they have great personalities. So down to earth. There's just something about girls that aren't from California that just gets me. So moving on, Chicago, Illinois is 5th on the list. And then number 4, LA. Probably the most sceney of any of the cities in America. You got that whole Hollywood, who are you kind of scene. Who are you? What do you do for work kind of scene that is big around there. A great bar and club scene. Similar to Pacific Beach, you have Santa Monica. Tons of bars and clubs lined up down the streets. A little bit more pretentious, I'll say. A little who's who of who you are, like I said. Everyone's really into what everyone's doing and who they know, who they don't know. But an excellent place to go out, and people are just beautiful there. There's models on models on models. You can't get enough of it. But if you're looking for something a little less pretentious, I'd say go somewhere else. Chicago seems like a great fit there. Then moving on, so number 4, Los Angeles, California. Number 3, Miami, Florida. So probably best known for its club scene there. I mean, just look at Pitbull and all his music videos. Miami Beach is the place to be. Clubs lined up on the water side. The weather is amazing, a little humid, but again, very attractive people. Affordability, I'd say less than Vegas, less than New York, but you're still paying a pretty dime when you go out to the bars and clubs. But Miami, Florida, number 3 on my list of Knicks picks. Moving into the final 2, and this is where I had a tough time deciding on which. Yeah, tough decision here. So I'm going to go with number 2, Las Vegas, Nevada, the party mecca of maybe not just the country, but the world. You have all the hotels. You have the large casinos. People, it's the Bachelor and Bachelorette paradise. When you think of movies, when you think of bachelor parties, when you think of bachelorette parties, you think Vegas, 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 Vegas. There's so many movies from The Hangover to Ocean's 11 that just show the craziness of going out in Vegas. And there's a reason why what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. As true as that, you go out there, it's Sin City, anything goes. Unfortunately, I had a little too much fun there. I actually got arrested in Vegas. Surprise, surprise. Sometimes even nice guys can sometimes fall into the wrong hole, but that is a story for another day. But yes, Las Vegas, Nevada is home to the best clubs in the world, and you go for one reason and one reason only. You can go to a club anywhere, but the pool parties are unreal. Go to a pool party, Dre's Beach Club, Encore, MGM, the Lazy River, best time of your life. Unfortunately, if you have something in between your legs, you're going to be, by something in between your legs, I'm not talking about the female anatomy, I'm talking about the male anatomy. You're going to be paying a lot of money. So definitely save up, bring cash only, because you don't want to be bringing out your credit card when you're in Vegas, because you might wake up with a couple $1,000s in debt. So Vegas is number 2 on Knicks picks, U.S. cities nightlife. And lastly, my favorite, not just place to go out, but city in America, New York. 9 million people. There's got to be 9 million people. So there's got to be attractive people walking around everywhere because there's just so many. And the best part is 53% female, 47% male. There's bars on every street corner. You could go to one bar every day, and I think it would take you nearly 5 years to hit every single bar in New York. You have Brooklyn, you have the East Village, you have Chelsea, and the weather might not be on point. The affordability is definitely at the very bottom in terms of the money you will be spending, but there's nothing like the energy, the city that never sleeps that New York offers. That is why it is number 1 on my list. It's something is always going on. Doesn't matter what day, what time. If you want to go out on a Monday, you can go out on a Monday. Friday, it's going to be popping. They have the bars. They have the different clubs. They have the celebrities just like LA, but a different kind of celebrity. So they have everything that LA provides. But you take an LA with 4.5 million people, you're doubling it to 9 million. And people living on top of people, unlike Los Angeles, that's widespread out. So close quarters in New York just adds to the fun of what it provides us and to tourists when they come to visit. So yes, Knicks picks for this week. S, U.S. nightlife. Number 5, Chicago, Illinois. 4, Los Angeles, California. 3, Miami, Florida. 2, Las Vegas, Nevada. And my number 1, New York City, New York. So that's what I have for you guys today. As always, I appreciate you guys listening to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I want to end by just letting you know please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review because that really helps us. Also, if you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening, and to all, a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.